speed.
This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk on Devil Radio 92.7. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci. Educated educators talking education.
This is fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Tuesday night, live. 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central time. Johnny out there on the left coast, it's 5 o'clock, right?
That's right, sir. Pacific
it's happy
time.
hour out there, man.
That's happy hour everywhere when we're on the air, man.
That's right. That is it. Hey, and if you want to join us, the number is 844-967-2789, 844-967-2789. Well, Johnny, prognostications, we had Jess Piper, the Dirt Road Democrat, on 2 weeks ago because the governor last week superseded our show. So I don't know. I tried to put a protest in with the governor's office saying, how could you bump Busted Pencils for the, but hey, sometimes you got to let the governor take that. But we were, we talked to Jess. It was a good conversation. The prognostication on your call about teachers entering the political sphere, that was great. I wanted to, though, remind people of my prognostication about 2023 being the year of the teacher apprenticeship. And I've been thinking about this and going, how is it that this could become some type of a movement? And I'm searching the web, Johnny, and I just wanted to bring your attention to a website that I happened to come across just going through. It's ncgyo.org. It is the National Center for Grow Your Own. On their About page, Grow Your Own is a partnership between school districts and educator preparation providers to select candidates. Hey, that's paraprofessionals, graduating high school seniors, career changers from local communities to earn their degree and educator license in order to teach through the apprenticeship. It was like, they're there. The organization exists, Johnny. They're out there doing the great work promoting the apprenticeship. And then so I dig a little bit deeper and I'm like, okay, we got to figure out who these people are. And here we go. David Donaldson. Check this out. Founder and managing partner. David was the lead author on the approved application by the U.S. Department of Labor to federally recognize the K-12 teacher occupation as eligible for the registered apprenticeship. His Grow Your Own and registered apprenticeship in teaching work in Tennessee was recognized by the White House, the U.S. Department of Education, and the U.S. Department of Labor. I'm thinking, wait a minute. We talked to Prentice Chandler, the dean at Austin Peay State. He told us, in fact, about the work in Tennessee that happened. I'm wondering, what? Is it possible? I'm thinking, David Donaldson, if you're out there just happening to be listening to Busted Pencils, every educator who's educated and talks education would be listening. But if David Donaldson might be out there, if he might want to, join the show, we're putting that call out there because I want to talk to this man about the registered teacher apprenticeship, my possible prognostication. And well, Johnny, wait, I just see it from Evan there. Well, can you, I guess we should believe it. We said, if you're an educator and you talk education, you're paying attention to Busted Pencils. David Donaldson, welcome to Busted Pencils. How are you, my friend?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I saw the Busted Pencils bat signal showing, and I'm responding to the call. So thanks for having me. Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, man. David, I tell you, if people listening, how was that for putting on a show right there, man?
Yeah, I think I need to hire you as a hype man for all the presentations I do. That would be much more helpful and a better show for the crowds.
Well, David, though, welcome to Busted Pencils. It's fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. The number, if you do want to call in and join us with David, it's 844-967-2789. David, really appreciate you taking the time to join Johnny and me on the show tonight. grow your own, all of this work. So when we met and talked to Prentice Chandler, he made mention of this early work that happened in Tennessee.
Mhm.
And my sense is that this is where, when you were at the Department of Education in Tennessee at that time, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing up Prentice, because I believe strongly in giving credit where credit is due. So, Grow Your Own in Tennessee was started by Dr. Sean and Petrus under the leadership of Director Millard House at the Clarksville Montgomery County Schools. And Dr. Imperatrice partnered with one of the most innovative, if not the most innovative, ed prep dean in the country, Dean Prentice Chandler and Dr. Lisa Barron of Austin Peay State University, to come up with this Grow Your Own model that would allow for folks that Clarksville Montgomery selected to be able to become a teacher for free and get paid to do so. Whether that was folks who were paraprofessionals, graduating high school seniors, career changers, you name it. Ultimately, fast forward a bit, based on the success they were having, we adapted what they did and spread it across the entire state. And I could go into that, but specifically, it was Sean and Prentice who came to me and said, this sounds a lot like a registered apprenticeship. And it was probably at that point in time I asked the most profound question I'll ever ask in my professional career, which was, what's a registered apprenticeship? But as we talk over the course of this time together today, you'll find out I'm a bit of a nerd, but I'm also pretty persistent. So lead the process that you shared. And eventually, after four tries, so third time wasn't the charm, and across 2 presidential administrations, got the occupation of a K-12 teacher approved. That's correct.
Well, okay, so let's kind of put a little bit more context to. We're talking about this, either teacher diversity, teacher shortage. I know right now the big issue, we're hearing about is teacher shortage. And Johnny and I talk a lot about this on the show. How are we going to get a handle on this? Where the next teacher's coming from? And I put some of the promos out for the show tonight. Got teacher shortage, get teacher apprenticeship, things like that. Help the listener though, who might not really be familiar with this. The idea first of saying, when you say an apprenticeship, first of all, where does the term apprenticeship come from?
Yes, great question. So I believe it's 86 years ago now, the National Apprenticeship Act was approved, creating registered apprenticeships. So I'm from Michigan originally. Don't hold it against me.
Johnny's a Detroit boy, man.
There we go. I'm a former Detroit Public Schools principal, so I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
We'll talk more about that offline. That'd be great. But in 2008, my brother-in-law got laid off, and so the same, with Ford, GM, and Chrysler, the big three, all getting hurt. All that money that is used traditionally to train people to become plumbers, electricians, work in the culinary arts, IT, can now, effective as of a year ago, can for the first time ever in 86 years, be used to now train people to become teachers. Registered apprenticeship, it's the best of both worlds when it comes to preparing teachers, in my humble opinion, which is you're getting your college coursework to lead to a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a post-bachelor's, license, and getting that hands-on experience under the tutelage of a mentor teacher who is the teacher of record.
So when we hear that word apprentice, it is referring to what probably a lot of people are thinking about, the trades industry, plumbing, carpenter, the fact that there's been apprenticeships, as you're putting out there, this federally recognized pathway to becoming one of these, skilled vocations. It's now, though, 87 years later, is what you're saying, is we're going to apply this kind of working situationally to become a teacher, and therefore a teacher apprenticeship combined with teacher education and college education. I know, Johnny, we've been thinking about that and saying, this is, though, one of the things that I think really makes the teaching apprenticeship unique is that higher education, provider being part of this. Johnny, throw in some chops there, man.
Well, yeah, and Tim and David, thank you for doing all the work that you all are doing with the organization, and then all the groundwork that we keep talking about when we have this conversation about, how do we get more people called to teaching into classrooms? And the way it historically has been, it's often provided a deterrent to having folks who might be great educators not able to be in our schools. And we've been there as school leaders. Like, we got people who are called to that service, who are really great at it, and who oftentimes can provide local essential role models. Talk often about bringing diverse people into education, and folks, kids in our community look up to. And it's so important that there are alternate pathways to becoming a teacher, and those exist out there, but they always seem to exist in ways that were not practical or doable for 99% of the people who we are trying to get into our building as certified teachers. And so when we started to learn about these programs, and then we started to ask questions about, like, understanding the difficulty to just thinking outside the box and bringing all the voices together to have the conversations to make it possible, it started to be more than inspiring. So it's led to these kinds of conversations. So thank you for all that work, David. And like Tim has said, really like lift the veil on that. This is all hands on deck. Like, these are like partners coming together in local ways to really solve this problem, where we don't necessarily have a teacher shortage, but we have, alternate pathways to getting people called to education into classrooms. There's a lot of great folks out there who find themselves called to teaching. And it's not only, an honorable career. It's one that, you can make more than a living wage on. You can do well by your community. You can be supported and support your family. And you can get there without having to jump through 10,000 hoops and going back to school. Maybe, you're 35 years old, and the only pathway to becoming a teacher is to enroll at university again. And although both Tim and I are at universities and we stand by the quality of teacher certification programs, we know the barriers. And so this is exciting. So the more we learn and we hear from you and the folks doing that, how can we springboard this, echo it, and really, communicate that it's not simple, but it's doable.
It is doable. And in fact, we're going to hold you, David Donaldson, since you took the time to give us a call. Busted Pencil's fully leaded education talk, grow your own teacher apprenticeship. David Donaldson, our guest. More when we get back, particularly, what does grow your own mean? More Busted Pencils back at the break. Welcome back, Busted Pencil's fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Johnny Lupinacci out there. Evan manning the controls in Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you so much. Our guest, David Donaldson, founder and managing partner, the National Center for Grow Your Own. We're talking about the teacher apprenticeship, looking at ways to bring people to that profession called teaching, that calling, Johnny, you were talking about, the sense of saying we want to do something. But David, and you gave us the definition of an apprenticeship, but let's try to sew this together in a story and how it works. And I think the best place to start is, so you're the National Center for Grow Your Own. Just tell me and everybody out there listening, what does this concept of grow your own mean? I think people have ideas, but tell us, how this really works with the teacher apprenticeship, but maybe even first importantly, how this works in the partnership area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say that there is no shared definition of grow your own.
Okay.
If you have nine out of 10 districts, and it might be 9.9 out of 10 now, we'll say that they have one. But we define it at the National Center of Grow Your Own as an articulated pathway for an aspiring educator to become a teacher for free and get paid to do so. So that means whether you're somebody who already has a bachelor's degree, it's just not an education, you have an associate's, you have no college credit at all, you're a high schooler, we want local school districts to be able to select people who have a heart for children, have a heart for kids. I believe you can teach someone elementary. I believe you can teach somebody special ed. But we all know somebody with a doctorate degree who should never be in front of a classroom. We've all fallen asleep during a college lecture. And so it is identifying those individuals and working with states, school districts, some cases philanthropy, to not do tuition reimbursement, but tuition investment and pay for these individuals to go through programs through educator prep providers to be able to eventually become a teacher.
Keep throwing the free out there. We'll come back to that because I know people love that. And we're going to explain that. But so the grow your own. In fact, you hit this though. It's really then, and so where I'm at here in kind of, rural Ohio, then if we were doing this, I'm kind of putting this out to the local principals and superintendents that I'm working with and saying, you know what, if we're looking for teachers, they're already here. They're already in high school and want to stay here. They're already in the community looking for a new job, looking for a new pathway. They're already working and kind of tired of what they're doing and would like to become something else, potentially a teacher, and they want to stay. So that grow your own that's the idea of grow your own, at least the way I hear you, is saying our local communities have the populations of people who want to be teachers. They're looking for that pathway. Does that sound, better or not better, but you know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's absolutely right. The talent has always been in the room, but they haven't had the opportunity or access to live out their dreams. It's like my mother. My mother worked as my school cafeteria worker, but she taught Sunday school and vacation Bible school for over 2 decades. She was not able to afford to go to college. Yet, I'm also the son, my father, who went to West Point. So he commits to public service via the military. He can go to school for free. And if he didn't go to West Point, you got the GI Bill. We don't have that for teaching, yet teaching's a public service. Why do we not have the GI Bill for teaching? Why do we not have these proactive and upfront investments for individuals? And I think it's possible, and we've proven it can be done.
Well, Johnny, I mean, you guys are chatting, during the break, the 2 Detroit boys there, grow your own. Johnny, when you were back in the Detroit area, I mean, is this a new concept? Have you thought about, we talk about this, right? It's like, we'll put all this effort into saying, we need you to be a teacher. We need you to be a teacher. And the potential here, and we'll get to the talk about how we make this work. They're sitting right in front of you. When you were a teacher in Detroit, how many of those students do you think, had they been in this conversation now that we're having, would have said, I like what you're talking about, Mr. Lupinacci?
Yeah, not only students, but I think even more so the era that I was teaching in Detroit, we saw such a massive economic collapse.
Okay.
That there were so many folks, I would more so say older brothers and sisters, I would say like aunts, uncles, parents in the community whose careers by necessity needed to change. And so you had a high concentration of really high skilled folks in a variety of areas, facing unemployment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks who would likely have become really great teachers, and some did. And so we had really great pathways, but we also had a lot of folks able to volunteer and be part of schools who realized, hey, I think I might be really good at this and I like it. And at that time, the pathway to becoming a teacher was prohibitive for them. It just didn't make sense. It was either too cost prohibitive with someone who was looking for work or needing to relocate for work. And, and I think in some cases, this was like an incubation site for a lot of this. Small schools started to do that. There was a Detroit Progressive Educators Network. There were a lot of partnerships between like Wayne State University, Michigan State University, U of M, and Eastern Michigan. I mean, it was all hands on deck to really begin to figure out how to solve this kind of problem that the nation, or we often are critical when we speak about it, we talk about as a teacher shortage. We were more looking at like, we have plenty of people and we have some really great folks too. And we, of course, have great students who need awesome teachers. How do we get these awesome folks who are here to be able to be committed and trained and placed in a sustained way into our schools? So it didn't really exist. I think had we had this kind of language, had we had examples more formally, there were plenty of opportunities for young people,
right?
But there weren't as many opportunities for folks who were really faced with, I think this is my calling. I think this is something I can really contribute to. And I'll tell you where it did work. It worked amazing. Some of the best teachers I taught alongside were people who found alternate pathways into the classroom.
Man, when we get back, though, we're going to get back with David Donaldson. David, we're going to talk about, and how do we pay for all this? Teacher apprenticeship, grow your own. David Donaldson, Busted Pencils, back after the break. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Tuesday night, educated educators talking education. Every so often we take a little break from the hardcore punk rock. Evan gives us a little bit of a nice melody music there. David Donaldson, National Center for Grow Your Own, our guest, talking about the teacher apprenticeship, the pathway for those people in your communities who are thinking about becoming a teacher. That's what Grow Your Own really looks at. You know, is there a high school student who might be thinking, I want to become a teacher? Is there a career changer that might want to become a teacher? As Johnny and David were talking about their experiences growing up in Detroit, when an economic downturn happens, the amount of really awesome qualified people who would love to become a teacher. How do they do that? The pathway. David, you've been making, mention of free. And I just want to, say, like, for the person who's wanting to become a teacher, that's the goal of the National Center for Grow Your Own, is to make these pathways free. However, to get started, though, how do we get to free? Maybe let's put it that way. Because Johnny and I both work for higher ed institutions, and we know that tuition is what keeps us working. School districts, they're public school districts. They don't have a lot of money. How does this get paid for?
Yeah, so great question. And that's the number one question that we get asked every time. So it's definitely on front of people's minds. So where we go with that is we start, if it's a school district, we ask, how many teacher vacancies do you have? And even if they have one, we say, okay, you can do a grow your own program, because most districts budget a vacancy at average teacher salary. And even if they don't, even if they start at first year teacher salary, the savings that they have of budgeting for someone's salary and fringe benefits versus having a long-term sub in there, that money can be used to invest in someone for their college education. So we start with that. We also talk about your tuition reimbursement dollars that you may have, but other things we start to look at. So one of the main things we do when we first come in is we work with chief talent officers or chief HR officers, and we help them have those conversations with the CFO, the chief financial officer, whose first words on their mouth almost every time is, no, you can't do this. And we turn them into a CF yes. And so with items like that, and then we get into, right now, everybody has ESSER funding. Everybody has it till September 2024. And we highly recommend using that. But we can be using our Title II, Title III, IDEA, Perkins 5, and that's all before we even get into apprenticeship funding. And so you definitely need to braid these funding sources. Apprenticeship is not a silver bullet. Let me be perfectly clear about that. But it can be leveraged along with all the funding sources I named. And you may be asking yourself, well, how can you use Title III or IDA for this? Well, we were able to use it in Tennessee, and we're able to use it in other places because we required all of our Grow Your Own graduates to graduate dual endorsed in either special ed or English as a second language. So if I'm requiring special ed, now I can pay for up to 50% of the program of IDEA funds. Now I can pay for up to 50% of the program of Title III if I'm requiring ESL. So there's some aspects there about the funding that can be potentially used. On the flip side, districts, we're also focused on our teacher vacancies, but you all know enrollment is down nationally in ed prep providers over the last 10 years, maybe longer than that. So it's a win-win. We need you and you need us. And so what we said to our ed prep providers in Tennessee, there was 42 during my tenure. We said, look, we have a group of candidates who would never go to you in the first place because they can't afford to. They can't even afford to take out the loans to begin with. But what would you do if we said for $100,000, you tell us how many candidates can you produce for $100,000? So we did 20 grants of $100K each, and universities could win multiple grants. And so via a competitive grant process, we got these universities to bid and say, here's what I can offer. For that amount, I can produce 6 teachers. Someone else said I could produce 7. And that is the way we approach this. Yet there's funding that is available. We invested at the state, but the money I just said could be done at the district level as well.
Okay, so that's where it is. Like you said, all hands on deck. Community partners bringing this together, and say, because keep in mind, we're saying, what significant barriers to becoming a teacher, and so whether you're a non-traditional, and I say this, a high school student who's sitting out there right now thinking, college isn't for me. There's just no way. I can't take out the loans. I can't afford it. In this model, we're actually talking to that student and saying, you know what, with the registered apprenticeship and a partnership with an EPP and some funding, this could be a possibility for you sitting out there in high school. For you career changer school districts, here's some money to invest in these career changers to keep them back in place. So, reducing cost is huge. And then, just put this in to make this out there too. When you're doing particularly the high school grow your own that we've seen in Tennessee, in one ways we're doing, it also has the ability to potentially reduce time to licensure also. So when you're thinking about, because you hear politicians go, it's too expensive and it takes too long to become a teacher. Well, with the National Grow Your Own model, using, some form of dual credit or college credit pluses, depending on your state, funding at the community college, you can reduce the cost, reduce time to licensure, and then throw in the apprenticeship. And what happens during the apprenticeship? This is where I like to talk about this, because Johnny and I, as traditional teacher education people, we used to send students out for 14 weeks of student teaching. Well, the apprenticeship, for the best way to understand that, is it's 2 years of student teaching in a lot of places, 2 full years as opposed to 15 weeks. There's the increase in experience. And we think about this. Now, David, you're talking about Tennessee. We're trying to do this, in different places. Where is the National Center for GYO? I mean, you have a state grouping of people that are working together. Tell us where all the work you're doing, what states you're working with, where people can find you. Give us this is your time to plug away.
Well, I always appreciate the opportunity to brag on the innovations that some of our state partners are doing, because there's so many mistakes I made in Tennessee and so many things I would do different. And so it's really cool to see this work take on a life of its own and the direction it's going. I'm a big fan of work happening in North Dakota. Talk about a really rural state that has to think differently about, and universities aren't, you may be a district where the closest university could be well over an hour away in a situation like that. So they focus on special ed, grow your own, parent a teacher pipeline, that now they are taking those high quality programs and getting them registered. West Virginia has done an incredible focus on high schoolers, to your point, Tim, leveraging dual credit, dual enrollment. We're seeing early college in some other cases. We have a state, South Carolina, embedded the science of reading into their grow your own work. And so they just had some initial winners selected that now there's opportunities in South Carolina to become a teacher for free and get paid to do so. Florida is doing a master's degree pathway with the University of Florida, partnering with 2, maybe 3 LEAs to allow them to hand select candidates that are best for those local communities. And those individuals will be able to get free master's degrees to become teachers. So there's some really, really cool work happening across the country. We do have what's called the National Registered Apprenticeship and Teaching Network. It currently consists of 15 states. It's completely free. If you have a registered apprenticeship, it's completely free for those states because it's a professional learning community. And, what I can say about that, because all the conversations are off the record, is that we've had states say, I was thinking about doing it one way, but then I heard this state present And now I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal that and add it to our work. So they're all learning from one another and yet adapting to their local context. You got tiny states, large states, suburban, urban, rural. It's a really, really cool opportunity. And then one of the things I would just add super quick, Tim, is the work's now going to districts. So we just got Memphis. Even though, formerly worked for Tennessee, we just helped Memphis Shelby County Schools with the University of Memphis get registered. And that's what you're going to start to see. As states set this up, the districts and ed prep providers are going to be able to, you're going to see that. When you said 2023 is the year of the apprenticeship, I think you might be right.
Oh, Johnny Lubinacci, you heard it right there, man. Prognostication. There it goes. Oh, man. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. David, talking about that in 15 states, you said, right? 15 states, and then in your learning community trying to get this together. It made me think too, one of the important aspects that you said though there too is this, the ability to localize and make this work for the district and or region and or geography that you occupy, to me, is one of the powerful components of the apprenticeship, because a lot of times this, solutions are typically mandated as a one size fits all approach. And, all our work, Johnny, we did with Prentice, and now talking to you, we keep hearing, no, not a top down, here's how you do it approach. Am I correct in hearing the National Center for Grow Your Own also saying that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this work doesn't matter what our ideas are if nobody implements them, right? Like, our goal is, as I've shared, is so that individuals can become a teacher, without that, and get paid to do so. And so you must respect and recognize and adapt to the local context. You can't do things to people. You got to do things with people. And so we've really, fortunately, because of the work we're doing, we've been able to now have new ideas and new tools in our toolkit as we help other states or other districts, because we've learned from so many awesome innovators across the country.
Well, so somebody's listening right now and they went, okay, I'm not in that. Say I went and I don't, but darn it, this is such a great idea. How do I get started, David?
Yeah. So whenever like a university comes to us first, we just say, hey, the best thing we could do for you is you reach out to a district and tell them about us, and let's set up a meeting. Or you reach out to the state. So if I'm an individual, I would reach out to my local superintendent or even local school board president and just say, look, this is happening. It is happening either at the district next door. It's happening at the state next door. It is this is something that we should be doing in our district, in our states, but that is the best way. There's plenty of articles on our site, send our website, whatever it may be. We'll meet with anybody. Our goal is to spread awareness. If we can help you build capacity, great. But we're blessed. We got plenty of work. But if there's 50 states and 16,000 school districts in this country, it will be an all hands on deck effort if we're going to reach this goal of creating a country where you can become a teacher for free and get paid to do so. So that's our advice. And if districts reach out to us, we meet with districts all the time, states all the time. We're really excited.
So when we reach out, so it's ncgyo.org is the
Correct.
website. That's N for national, C for center, G for grow, Y for your, and O for own. ncgyo.org is the website. David Donaldson is the founder and managing partner at the National Center for Grow Your Own, talking about teacher apprenticeships. David, you know what Johnny and I always say to our guests after this? Man, thanks for busting pencils with us, dude. We really appreciate it.
And for all the work you're doing. It's awesome. Appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for having this conversation and all the conversations that Busted Pencils continues to lead for educators across the country. Appreciate it.
Awesome. David, have a great night. Busted Pencils. When we get back, Johnny and Tim, we'll do what we do, which is try to make sense of the last 45 minutes. It'll be a little bit of a fun ride. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. If you want to join me and Johnny for the last segment, 844-967-2789. Questions about the apprenticeship, give us a call. Let us know. More Busted Pencils, Johnny and Tim, when we get back right after the break. Pencils, fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. Thank you to our guest for the first 3 segments of the show, David Donaldson, National Center for Grow Your Own, teaching apprenticeships. The goal for the National Center for Grow Your Own is anybody who wants to become a teacher, they can become a teacher for free and get paid while doing it. Again, lots of steps to getting there. However, the idea, Johnny, and I said, this is going to be the year of the teacher apprenticeship. And, because I just think this idea of saying our teachers, particularly, let's use the teacher shortage narrative. So I have openings in my school. I need people, and I hear from principals and superintendents, we're looking for this. I get phone calls. Hey, do you have any special ed teachers? Do you have any of these? You go, okay, for now, we got to solve those problems. But thinking about this and saying, okay, but if we set this in motion and said, how many high school seniors are sitting out there in your classrooms right now who, given the opportunity with the right financial incentives and the right time and the right pathway, would they take the opportunity to become a teacher? How many people live in your district who, have some college and would love to become a teacher, but need to figure out a pathway that makes sense, that actually teaches them the content they need, but then gives them the experience? How many institutions of higher education are out there? David put it out there, looking at enrollment in teacher education and saying, you know what, we need to talk about this issue here, because it's not a groundswell of people who are lining up to become teachers. Is this one way to think about, man, as Prentice said from Austin P, we're kind of changing the narrative, doing a pivot here. Johnny Lupinacci, I don't know your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think there'll always be people coming into teacher education to the traditional route.
Right.
We know it works. It does. It's high quality. It's a great pathway for people who have that option viable to them. What I mean by that is maybe you do a couple years at community college, you transfer into a teacher certification program, or you have a bachelor's degree and you get enrolled in the many master in teaching programs out there that are sort of fast paced and about a year long. You get a certification and a master's degree. These programs exist,
right,
for a lot of what I'll call traditional students, even though there are some non-traditional students in those programs, in some ways that those programs accommodate, diverse learners. And what I mean by that is diversity in a wide variety of dimensions, geographic location, economic abilities, in terms of, like, maybe you have to keep your full-time job while you'd like to become a teacher. These are realities that have historically and continually today block a lot of people from becoming teachers. And so you got these grow your own programs. I love this organization we interviewed, tonight and have been talking about, because they help communities really think through the complexity of this. What's going to work for your community? What's going to work for the people in your community who, like you said, Tim, want to become teachers, can't leave their job to do it, or can't not have a job, which most of our programs, not only can you not have a job during, but you're paying for them.
Right.
So it's a massive amount of debt that's like triple the debt, because really not only are you paying for school, but you're also losing money on the time away from job. So you exclude most folks who have dependents or need to economically provide for themselves, which is most people.
Right.
And so these programs are incredibly important because they get creative. They get communities together to talk about, they get the stakeholders all together to talk about how might we make this happen. And so, our guest tonight was one of those people who's been at this for a while, who's helped districts, and university partnerships and, nonprofits all come together, with members of the community to figure out how to make this work, how to get really great teachers into all of our classrooms. And Tim, we've talked about this. This is an all hands on deck priority. It's why you've made it a prognostication for 2023, because we know we need it.
Right.
We need more great teachers. And with that means that we have to have more pathways that are high quality.
Right.
And I believe these programs are really high quality because they're creative. They get together experts on all the aspects of becoming a teacher and work around that.
Think about that, Johnny. I mean, that to me too is what I really, take this and say, okay, I love this idea because it isn't the quote alternative that says you can do this a better way faster. It says higher education. College is still that that requirement, So it's higher education in partnership with school districts in communities, providing an apprentice type pathway that still requires all of the education. Because you know what, Johnny, teaching isn't just something that is an experientially learned craft. There's lots of content, there's ideas, there's topics. So being able to have higher education and school districts and communities working together to put this as a package to say, and you can be a teacher, and I'm going to sound like Oprah, and you can be a teacher, and you can be a teacher, and you can be a teacher. But think about that. High school senior, you too can be a teacher. You didn't think about it. You're out there right now going, you know what? I do not really care for driving 45 minutes back and forth to my web design office. Well, you can be a teacher too. Well, think about that, Johnny Lupinacci. You open those doors, as you said. 1 minute before music, man. I'll give you a couple more words there.
Well, I just think it's important, Tim. A lot of times we've been in careers where the most rewarding aspect of our career is mentoring new people into that career, is sharing our knowledge, is teaching. And I'm not saying that everyone should leave what they're doing to become a teacher, but at some point you might find that it's a smooth transition and there's a pathway for you, especially with all this AI stuff. So we're going to come back to prognostications, Tim. And in future shows, we're going to bring back the AI because the AI industry is going to put a lot of tech workers and a lot of people who have provided content into layoffs and into unemployment. And so, if you're out there and you work in that industry and you find yourself good at explaining things to others and wanting to be part of your community and mentoring future generations of the workforce, man, then tune in because we got pathways for you to become a teacher.
Pathways for AI people to become teachers. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. David Donaldson, National Center for Career on
Facebook and Twitter.
Back next week.
Busted Pencils, or log on to bustedpencils.com for blogs, podcasts, and more. Join us again next Tuesday for Busted Pencils on Devil Radio 92.7.
Matt Damon on Busted Pencils Radio. Please stop bothering me and just ask my mom already.
Hey, this is Tim from Rise Against here on Busted Pencils Radio.
We are Busted Pencils!